What's up you guys, it's Aria. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. For today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys my best tips on how to be more productive. I feel like we're all kind of hitting a point in the semester where it's just getting a little bit difficult. So I thought that I would share some tips with you guys. Not to like toot my own horn or anything, but I feel like I'm pretty good at staying productive. I'm actually a little bit too good at being productive. That's a whole other video though. Also, if you see me looking down, it's because I have my phone right here with all of the tips written out. So yeah, let's just get into it. So my first tip is to figure out what time of day you feel the most productive and arrange your schedule from there. This might be different than the people around you. I know my roommates and a lot of my friends find that they actually feel the most productive like really late at night. That's just when they feel the most motivated to get work done. I, however, am not like that at all. I feel most productive like really early in the morning. Right when I first wake up, that's when I have the most energy, and that's when I find that I'm able to get the most work done. I find that even when I wake up later, I just can't get myself to be that productive at night. I always find myself going slower. I get distracted more easily, but that's just me personally. So if you're not really sure when exactly you're most productive, I would recommend just experimenting with some different schedules for yourself and keep notes about what seems to work the best for you and what makes you feel the most motivated. This might also vary depending on the task. For example, I'm never motivated to clean on the weekends. I know a lot of people like to do their cleaning on Sundays, but I'm just personally never that motivated to clean on the weekends. However, I'm always motivated to clean like right in the middle of the work week. So that's just how I plan my schedule. I never plan to do like laundry or any kind of cleaning on the weekends because I just know I'm not going to be as motivated. So my next tip is to time block. I'm sure you already know the benefits of making a to-do list, but I would really recommend taking it a step further and estimating how much time a task is going to take you and then blocking out a set time in your week to work on that task. Now, the reason that I suggest that you give yourself a set amount of time to work on something is because of a concept called Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law states that work expands to fill the time that is allotted for it. So if you tell yourself, I have all day to write this essay, it's going to take you all day to write that essay because subconsciously you know that you have the entire day to do it. Versus if you set aside a 4-hour block of your day and you said, this is how much time I have to work on this essay. You're going to work a lot faster and you're going to be more efficient because you know that you only have 4 hours to do it. I think this is actually why a lot of people procrastinate. They need that time pressure to get themselves motivated to work. Time blocking is kind of a way to force yourself to do that without actually putting things off till the last minute, which I think is a much better strategy. Obviously, sometimes things take longer than you anticipated, which is why I would recommend that you don't put things off till the last minute. But if you've never tried time blocking, I would highly recommend it because it really leveled up my productivity. So another tip that I have that kind of goes along with time blocking is if you finish a task early, don't accidentally reward yourself with more work. This is actually something that I'm still trying to work on because I'm really bad about this. Whenever I finish a task early, let's say I allotted like 4 hours to do something and I finished it in 3.5, I would always just move right on to the next task and start working on that. This is not a good habit because one, it will lead to burnout if you are just never giving yourself a break. And two, you're not going to be motivated to work any faster on things because your brain knows that once you finish this task, you're just immediately going to start on the next one. So what's the point in trying to finish something in a shorter amount of time? So if you allot a certain amount of time to do something and you end up finishing the task early, just use the rest of that time as a break time. Or if you really just want to move right on to the next thing, make sure if you finish everything that you needed to get done for the day, that at the end of the day, you're giving yourself proper relaxation time. Like I said, this is something that I'm personally still working on, but I really am trying to be better about it because I have experienced burnout before and it is not fun. So speaking of breaks, my next tip is to figure out if you work better having short breaks or long breaks. So I know a lot of people are a fan of the Pomodoro technique, which is where you set a timer and you work for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break and then you just repeat that. Personally, this does not work for me at all. One, I just don't really find that I need a break after 25 minutes. I have pretty good stamina, I guess, in terms of working for long periods of time. So I'm honestly just not really tired after 25 minutes of work. And I also just don't really like to take quick little 5-minute breaks. I prefer to take a longer break. I find that that actually makes me feel a lot more recharged and ready to start on something else. So what works for me actually is to work on something for like 3 or 4 hours and then take like an hour-long break and then keep working for another 3 or 4 hours. You might not be that way at all though. I know some people really can't get themselves to work longer than like 30 to 40 minutes or so. The key is you want to actually take your break just a little bit before you get too tired, because if you hit a point where you're just super exhausted, it doesn't really matter how long you take a break for, you're just not going to want to go back to work. So again, that's something you kind of need to experiment with for yourself. I would say at this point in the semester, if you've been doing it one way, maybe try switching it up if it's not working for you. Another reason that I don't really like to take a break after 25 minutes is it kind of disrupts my flow state that I get into. When I first start working, I find it difficult to keep going, but once I've been working for about like 10 minutes or so, I kind of get into this like flow state and I'm not really thinking about it and I'm just working. And so if I take a break after only 25 minutes, it really takes me out of that, and then I once again have to get myself into that flow state, if that makes sense. So my next tip is to change up your environment and make sure the environment that you work in and that you sleep and relax in is different. I know we are all guilty of working in our bed sometimes. I definitely am, but I'm really trying not to do that because it messes with my sleep and my productivity. My brain just gets confused and doesn't know if we're supposed to be asleep or if we're supposed to be working. So I'm really trying to be a lot better about that and at least work at my desk. I used to do pretty much all of my work at my desk in my room, but I was finding that being in my room for extremely long periods of time was just leading to me getting more distracted, and also it just is not fun to always be in the same place. So I actually like to change up my environment pretty often. Sometimes I'll just go work in the living room with some of my roommates, or what I really like to do is go work in a public place. So either the library or a coffee shop are some of my favorite places to work. I find that this works really well for me in terms of keeping myself from getting distracted. If I'm sitting at a coffee shop or at the library, I'm not going to pull out my phone and start watching TikToks. I'm not going to watch YouTube videos on my laptop because I know that other people can see me. Plus, I personally just really like the ambient noise of a coffee shop. It's not so much noise that it distracts me, but it's also not dead silent, which I like. Speaking of distractions, my next tip is to just hide your phone. Either leave it in a different room, completely power it off, whatever you need to do to keep yourself from going on your phone, just do it. If you have it right next to you while you're working, you're gonna pick it up, you're gonna get a notification, and you're gonna wanna look at it. My next tip is to break large tasks into smaller, more manageable ones. All of my classes this semester are project-based. I don't really have a lot of smaller assignments. I mostly just have these large projects that can take like 3 to 4 weeks to complete. So it can be kind of overwhelming for me to just write down one of those projects on my to-do list because I know that there's no way I can do the entire thing in one day. I know for me, even if I work on something all day, like let's say I spend 8 hours on a project one day, if I don't get to cross something off my to-do list, I don't feel productive and I don't feel like I did anything, even though I worked on something for 8 hours. So breaking down these big projects into smaller tasks makes me feel a lot more productive because I can cross things off as I'm working on the project. I don't have to wait until I fully finish it. So for example, for my web design class, instead of just putting web project on my to-do list, I'll break the project into really small tasks like brainstorming, mood board, sketches, wireframes, style guide, prototyping each section, code each section. This is also really helpful if you have like giant research papers to write or a really big exam to study for. I know some people get really overwhelmed if they just write the word study on their to-do list. So something that could be more manageable for you is to write out each lecture that you need to review. And then as you're studying, you can cross things off and feel more productive and a lot less overwhelmed. And to end off this video, my last tip is to try not to spend too much time planning and researching the best way to be productive. You may have even come across this YouTube video because you searched how to be productive on YouTube, and then you just fell down a rabbit hole of watching YouTube videos instead of actually being productive. You might also be guilty of this in terms of planning. Maybe you spend too much time trying to lay out a Google Calendar and a bullet journal, but you also have a Trello board and there's just like too many places where you have your to-do list or your schedule when really you just need to pick one thing, stick with it, and then actually go work on your tasks. I'm not saying to not plan and research at all and to not consider if there's a better way for you to be planning out your schedule, but just make sure you're not using that as a form of procrastination. I'm definitely guilty of this. I'm guilty of a lot of the things I mentioned in this video. I know I used to bullet journal and it would make me feel really productive, but it was actually just taking up a lot of time and not really helping me complete tasks on my to-do list any better. So I actually ended up just switching back to a planner that's already laid out for me, and then I don't have to spend like 4 4 hours a week like laying out my bullet journal spreads. So if you need to study, sure, look up some study tips, but don't accidentally spend 4 hours watching study videos on YouTube instead of actually just studying. All right, you guys, those are all my tips. I really hope that this video was helpful. I really hope that everybody's semester is going well. Please let me know down below in the comments if you want to see more videos like this. I can definitely do some videos on time management and how I personally like to plan out my week if that's something that you guys are interested in. Funny enough, I'm actually procrastinating some other work that I need to do right now, so I'm gonna go do that. And if you guys need to be productive, I would encourage you to go do that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you next week. Bye!